Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Tilsonburg Town Council meeting of May 24th, 2022. The mayor, I'm Dave Barris, deputy mayor, and I'll be chairing tonight's meeting. The mayor of Tilsonburg, Stephen Molnar, is here virtually, but he has asked me if I would chair the meeting, but he is there on screen, as we can all see. So welcome to everyone in the gallery and at home, and we have quite a lengthy agenda tonight, and we're going to get through it before too late. There aren't any hockey games to worry about, but I'm sure we'll have you through in a short time. So we're going to open our meeting tonight with our moment of silence, and I'm going to read that in Tilsenberg, we gather on the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples. Dating back countless generations, we acknowledge the Anishinaabe, and please forgive me for my pronunciation, the Haudenosaunee and the Attawandaron peoples, showing respect for the long-standing relationships that Indigenous nations have had to this land, as they are the original caretakers. So we'll start tonight's meeting with the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Rosehart, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Parker, that the agenda prepared for the council meeting of May 24th, 2022 be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Rosehart. I'm going to add an addition or an amendment to that agenda. As I'm chairing the meeting, I did have a notice of motion, and I've asked the clerk if she would move that to the next meeting so that I can take participation in that notice of motion. There's no urgency there, so we'll just eliminate that from tonight's agenda, and we'll put it on the next one. So the agenda as amended, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting, Councillor. Oh, sorry, I should ask for disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. And seeing none, Councillor Parker, the minutes of the previous meeting.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gilvezi that the minutes from the regular council meeting held on May 9th, 2022 be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion is carried. Presentation tonight from, there she is, the Station Arts Center to council from Gail Connor from the Station Arts Center. Okay, fine. Gail, we spoke earlier today, and we'll just ask Tabitha if she'd like to come take the podium and make a presentation to council. So we have Gail Connor and Tabitha Verburst in attendance, and Heather Lockhart. Hello, Heather. All right, fine. Thank you. Tabitha, would you like to take the stand, please?
Hello, everyone. All right. So on behalf of the Tilsenburg Station Arts Center, we would like to present as a gift for the Tilsenburg 150, a wonderfully made quilt that kind of celebrates the history of Tilsenburg. This is created by Gail Connor herself. Yeah, so this is a gift for the town of Tilsenburg for the 150th celebration, and it's to the town from the station.
Thank you, Tabitha. Would you turn that around, please, Gail, so the camera can pick up. The camera is right by the clock there, and if you hold it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all right. That's beautiful. Very nice.
Can you see that?
Can you see that, Mayor Molnar?
So with the help
Yep,
of
he sees it. There we go.
with the help of Patty Phelps from the Annandale National Historic Museum, she helped find some of the historic photographs for Gail to, I guess, replicate into the quilt itself. So she's used some of the older buildings that are now no longer with us, and then obviously some of our newer buildings that are still standing here today.
Wow.
More up-to-date ones and the your 150 logo. This is in commemorative for your 150 years. And Joan Weston also. I started with Joan Weston, and she steered me in the right direction of where I can get the photos. I was kind of going through her for the Historical Society, but Patty was the one that sort of has all the archives. So I hope you like it.
We do. Very nice.
For you, and then there's two labels. One says what the quilt was done, who it was done by and why it was for, and the other one's actually the stories about the pictures on here that these are trail markers. And they represent going forward, so the originators of Tilsenburg going forward and progressing. And at the bottom, they go the opposite way because we're celebrating the past.
Well done. Very well done. Gail, quick question. Where would you like to see that displayed? At the Station Arts Center or the museum?
Well, not necessarily, I don't think it was, I don't.
We
it wasn't
don't
intended to
really
be the
have
station.
the
This is
Right.
for you,
Okay,
the council and the town,
right.
so I don't know if you want to have it in here.
Well, we'll certainly display it on, we'll display it on Canada Day.
I was gonna say, I thought at your actual celebration.
Oh, absolutely.
On that day, maybe you would have it there so other people could, have a peek at it.
Well, if I could do a little plug for you, I understand there's going to be pancakes on July 1st.
I
And
There
it
is.
might be a good idea at the Station Arts Center for the 800 or 900 people or more that are going to be there for pancakes to see it and touch it and make comments on it.
This is something for you, commemorative from the station.
That's good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. People of Tilsonburg appreciate you for that. It's well done.
My son-in-law, who is a network administrator, he helped me get the images on the fancy paper
Right.
that you have, the fabric paper. So there's quite a little group that got together and put this.
A lot of thought and a lot of work went into that.
Yeah.
A lot of love. Thanks, Heather. That was very well. Thank you very much. Okay. Where are we? Station Arts Center. Councilor Galvasi.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Esseltine that the council for the town of Tilsonburg receives the presentation from Gail Connor.
And from the Station Arts Center. Okay. I'm sorry? Yeah, we need to vote on that. We'll call the question. All in favor? All right. Thank you very much. That's carried. On to public meetings. We're going to start with the consideration of a municipal drain report from A.G. Smith Drain. And I'm just going to read something here. The council shall consider the report as prepared by Spreed Associates dated March 22nd, 2022, and shall give opportunity to any person who owns lands within the area requiring drainage who have not signed the petition an opportunity to do so. Engineering staff will give an overview of the work required. Brandon Widner, engineer from Spreed Associates, architects and consulting engineers in attendance to present the report. Peter Penner, president, project manager from DL Consulting Engineers, present to speak on behalf of the developer, and questions from any affected property owners who are present or virtually. Residents registered to speak, we have none. And we'll carry on from there, and we'll ask, I guess, Carlos, are you going to open this from engineering staff to give an overview of the work? Or should we ask Brandon to do it? Yeah.
Ask Brandon to come to the stage and then just present the report that was prepared by Spirit Associates for this train.
Thank you. So as you're aware, my name is Brandon Widner. I'm with Spreed Associates out of London. We were appointed on this drain. Now, one thing you mentioned about a petition, this isn't a petition drain. This is a drain under section 78, which is a request. A petition drain is a new drain, which is under section 4. So we don't actually have a petition to remove or add your name to. That's a common, let's say, error that's sometimes made. This is a 78. It's done by request. At the time, the request was signed by the town. The property is in turn switched hands, and this drain is being relocated on what is a new Armtech property proposal. So what we're talking about tonight is a J.A. Smith drain. This is a larger drain that for, I'm hoping we can bring a map on the screen, maybe, but it's for development on Rokeby Side Road. That's where the drain starts. There's an old railway there. That's where it ends. It then proceeds all the way through Norfolk up to about where Townsend Lumber is. We have, and even myself have did reports on this drain in the past in the Norfolk part of the works. Most recently right up at Townsend Lumber. So we have experience working on this drain, but the section we're dealing with tonight was a drain that was constructed on October 30th of 1974. It was done by Carl Wiesland. That's a very common engineer in this area at that time. And that is the current report on this portion. This was all agricultural property at this time. So we did have a site meeting on this project. The proposal was to relocate a portion of the drain in the Armtech property. Now, a lot of this work, if not all of it, was completed by Peter Penner with his site plan. I came in and we're just incorporating the works that were approved by the site plan. There is no construction under this report. This is an incorporation. So our proposal is essentially mimicking the site plan. We're going to relocate approximately 289 meters of open drain, as well as there is a portion of drain that is being enclosed, approximately 117 meters. This is all being done in accordance with the site plan. We'll then abandon the existing portion of drain from 1971, and the maintenance schedule will remain the same as the old drain. The work here is essentially an incorporation of that work I noted. We do have a permit from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, which essentially says that no work in the drain can appear in the in-water work timing periods. Now, that being said, no in-water work should occur between October 1st and July 15th of any given year. And that is the permit that has already been acquired. So the total cost of all this work on our end is approximately $10,250. That is paid by that property. It's not assessed to anyone else on the drain. Typically on municipal drains, they're assessed to a number of people in the watershed. This is being assessed only to that landowner because they are the one asking for the improvement, and it essentially affects no one else. But that pretty well summarizes it. I see we now have the plan on the screen. So you can see that the watershed is quite large. You know, it takes in a large part of Norfolk County. There is a small portion being enclosed. You know, this area is 240 hectares in size. There's quite a bit of water going through there. The drain will then be relocated further south and west, closer to the property lines in that property. Currently, it cuts across the corner. The portion being enclosed is adjacent Rokeby Side Road, and that's to facilitate with their laneways. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And I know Peter Penner's here as well.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor. My first question is, so for future maintenance on the drain, will that all be done from the Armtech property?
Correct.
And another
Actually, if you had the site plan up, there's a stormwater management facility adjacent this, and Peter Penner has allowed for an access along to get to the drain.
Okay, thank you. And one final question through you, Deputy Mayor. With regards to the drain, is there a buffer zone around the area that doesn't allow for, say, the planting of trees? Like, do you have to, like, does a tree have to be planted so far away from the drain so that the roots don't encumber the drain itself?
Well, it's recommended on the closed portions not to do that. Now, the portions here we do have enclosed are all sealed pipe. The open portions, you know, there's no set rule on where trees can and can't go. Typically, they're not on the maintenance corridor. The maintenance corridor is what I would call the east or north side, not the, let's say, abutting landowner side. But there's no set rules on distance to trees.
Mayor Molnar, you've joined us virtually. You have a question for Mr. Widner.
Thanks very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Mr. Widner, can you hear me fine?
Yep.
Okay, a really brief question. I'd had the opportunity to view the presentation that you made on the, I believe it was the 25th of April. And the report that's on tonight's agenda, meaning the 24th of May, is the same material from the original report dated the 22nd of March. Do I have that correct?
Yes, there's been no changes.
And so you and your expert opinion and that of Spreet and Associates in your historical position that you've been charged to do will stand by the recommendations that are on the stamped report dated the 22nd of March.
Yes.
I think I have no further questions until there's a resolution on the floor. Thanks, Mr. Widner.
Thank you very much. Counselor Parker, question?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Mr. Widner. Is there any risk to any farms upstream of the drain with moving it this way? Just like in Norfolk County or anything like that?
I guess risks in what way?
Flood risks.
Well, not really. The current pipe under Rokeby Side Road is smaller than everything here being proposed. So I believe it's a 24-inch diameter. I can tell you on working in parts of the drain in Norfolk, there's large portions of the drain already enclosed. This drain is a very unique one. And if you look on an aerial, there's portions enclosed, there's portions opened, and it switches back and forth. And I know there is another current proposal on the table to enclose more of the upstream end. But I do not see it causing any additional flooding that would already not occur. The road crossing we are connecting to is much smaller than anything we're proposing here.
Thank you.
Very well. Anything further for questions? Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Mr. Penner, would you like to make some comments? Take the podium. Welcome Pete Penner from CJLD Consulting Engineers.
Deputy Mayor Bears and council and staff here. I'll be brief. Brandon did a good job explaining the process and what we've gone through. This is something that was designed for the site plan, and it has site plan approval, and Brandon has been looking after incorporating it. The design of it, as you spoke to, we did use a bigger size, so we went with a 900 diameter on the downstream, the north side of Rokeby Road, and it's just a 600. And there's various sizes upstream, but we do want to allow for those upstream areas to be improved in the future, including the road crossing of Rokeby. It'll most likely be matched into the 900 size there as well. And the Armtech, we talked to them initially about whether they could tolerate it running across its current location and kind of working around that. But with the driveway crossings and that drain intersecting it, it would require them to have two stormwater management facilities. And with the ground being such a nice sandy area out there, probably historically a tobacco area, we came up with a infiltration design on the storm pond as well, so that it maintains the water table in the area. And there's some downstream irrigation ponds. I'm not sure if they're still in use or not, but we want to maintain base flow for those as well. So that was part of the infiltration design. This will still need to get MOE approval on the stormwater management, and the whole idea of the design was to match the post-development flows from the large gravel areas into what the sand would have allowed previously. So that's why we have to have the retention areas to slow down the water, so we don't flood anybody downstream, but still maintain base flow. So that's what our idea of the design was. We've left a 5-meter buffer for trees along the west side of the property. Then that'll be fenced, and it's still another 1.5 meters yet to the top of the bank on the outside for the open portion of the drain. There's also a buffer left along Rokeby Road. I think that was 30 feet, 35 feet. There we go. And at the corners closest to the residents, we squared up the property, which left some triangle areas that were bigger buffers in there. Of course, in the wintertime, it was looking a little more bleak, but I drove the site there this morning, and a lot of foliage has regrown up now, and it does give a good aesthetic buffer. You don't see the industrial site very much from those residents there. There's also some tender pricing for some coniferous trees to be planted in on that side, on the private property side as well. So hopefully that'll provide enough screening to separate the residential from the industrial uses. I think that's
Very well.
all I would have to add, really.
Thank you. Questions from council for Mr. Penner? I think you've answered everything very well. Thank you very much. All right, thank you. I'm just going to ask now, is there someone in the gallery who would like to make comments to council? Someone who would like to speak? We do. Sir, do you mind identifying yourself for the record?
Peter Lisak.
I'm sorry?
Peter Lisak.
Okay, and maybe we can just ask Ann there if you would go over after and give her your name and your address.
Pardon me?
Would you give the young lady behind you your name and address when you're done approaching
Yeah,
council?
okay.
All right, thank you. How would you like to, please proceed?
Why do they want to close that drain? That's my question. Number one.
I think, Cephas? I'm sorry, Mr. Penner, the engineer, would you answer that, please?
All right, that's a good question. And when we had looked at the project initially, we had looked at enclosing the entire drain. And it's the same reason that a lot of farmers are in these, the land values are high and crop prices are high. So it becomes more feasible to spend the extra money on enclosing it. But partway through the process, we decided to leave I think it's about 2/3 of it as an open drain. So we're only closing the front portion right along Rokeby Road up to we cross their driveway. And then the rest of it is still staying an open drain, similar to what's there now. So it's about 1/3 of it is being enclosed and not the whole thing.
Can I ask a question here? Or I should get up?
It's up to the guy up front.
You can ask, yes. Do you have another question?
Okay, when you close that drain, a big storm comes. That water won't go down on that pipe. It's gonna be flooded on the other side, on my property. My flood zone also changed because I get closer to the,
Which
Drain.
side of the road of Rokeby are you on? Are you on the south side or the north side?
so,
On the south side? Okay, we're not, the crossing of Rokeby Road is not changing. There's a 600 culvert there, 24-inch, and we're not changing that. And the pipe that we're putting in is going to be 36-inch, so bigger. It'll have twice the capacity.
I saw the drawing. So if you don't close, just close from the road, then the water can't go down at all, or whatever water comes is coming on my fault.
We should have zero impact
No,
on your side of the road. We're maintaining the capacity through there. There should be no more. I had looked at possibilities of putting a ditching on your side of the road so that we can maintain overflows, and that it's the major overflow with the culvert on Rokeby doesn't handle it. There's a long sag in the road, and I don't know if has it ever overtopped the road in your knowledge or not?
No, nothing.
No, I didn't think
I know
so.
nothing, so don't ask me questions.
Okay. I'm not aware historically if it's ever overtopped the road. And if you look at the upstream, there's some significantly smaller portions than the 24-inch. Is that correct, Brandon? Yeah. I thought there was even some 10-inch pipe, 250 millimeter.
I know in both, if you go say a kilometer upstream or 700 meters upstream of this landowner, there is a large enclosure in the neighborhood of 50.
Okay. Yeah, there's a larger, a length that's enclosed with a 15-inch pipe in Norfolk. And again, it's 24-inch, a little further downstream, a little more water comes into it. This is for the Rokeby Road crossing. I warned the developer that he says it's sandy, there's no water running off. And every time we got a big rain, he'd send somebody out there, we'd look at it and shoot, still no water. I said, well, in February, when everything's frozen up, that's when we're going to get a lot. Yeah, I was out there in February and it didn't go up near as much as I had thought it would then either, but there's still going to be freeze situations where you do get the biggest runoff, and that's why we tried to bump this pipe sizing up closer to what the municipal criteria is. We also have to be aware that when we do increase it across Rokeby Road, or the town does down the road, that it doesn't cause downstream flooding. Those have to be looked at as well. But without changing the culvert at Rokeby Road, there should be no change in the flow that crosses this property. In a 100-year storm, it may overtop the road. It'll be directed into the bigger pipe, and that'll carry it and then carry on in the ditch. But I'm confident we won't cause any problems to your property.
Also, when you made the new drain,
Yes.
you curve left and you curve right, so that slows down the flow.
Yes, it does. The drainage path is longer, marginally. It's not much difference.
But why you really want to close it?
Close it, well, just so they can get across the driveway is the main reason.
Build a bridge,
Build a bridge across it?
that's right. And
Bridge,
then you leave it everything the way it is.
yeah, bridges are obviously more expensive yet than,
Also,
that
never
it-
mind. I
it
don't
makes a
do it.
difference.
No,
Mhm.
no, I don't like it because the water cannot go down because it's not open.
Mhm.
So you just have some pipe there and the water can go down and I'm getting flooded.
Well, I think what we're hearing here is there's actually more capacity to take more water away than what there has been in the past. So, and
Exactly,
that
yes.
puts it in a nutshell. So, all right. Yes,
Explain, when Mr. Pinter says closing, I'm getting the understanding that maybe the gentleman thinks that we're closing the drain. What you're saying is covering to drive over the drain.
I
Yeah.
understand it's covering that.
Yeah, a culvert means a closed drain, and an open drain is
When
an
it's
open channel. Yeah.
Everything can go down on the top higher than
Mhm.
what it is. When you just have a pipe, you only have a pipe and that's all that can go in the capacity,
Yes.
no more. So it's coming up, where it's gonna go. It's open up there, but then it's closed before, closed up there, so it
Yeah.
has to come up right there.
The restrictions at Rokeby Road are still far, it's closed to a smaller diameter on Rokeby than what we're putting in though. So our pipe will only flow half full when it's flowing full across Rokeby Road. So it like academically, yes, it can slow it up a little bit, but in a practical sense, no, there's not enough water to fill it anyways.
Yeah, but it still comes, how much it comes.
Exactly.
So
So-
how can you predict?
We can predict,
Yeah,
and we use the,
What's
actually, the
What's
later,
benefit for me and what's the benefit for you? You wanna cut cost at my expense.
no, that's not it. That we're putting in bigger pipe than what's there now. Like it'll have less flooding for you, if anything.
Why don't you close all the way then?
your definition of closing doesn't mean that you're gonna stop the water from flowing
No,
through.
no, it's just
No, no,
putting
no,
a pipe.
it's not that. It's, you have only so much space to get through, but when it's open, it can go above.
Right.
If you have a pipe that's big, nothing goes above it when it's.
But there's a larger pipe being installed than what there was in the past, so it'll take more
Yeah.
water.
I can assure you that
That's right.
it sounds like you understand.
Yeah,
We're putting
yeah.
a bigger pipe than what's, it's already restricted to at Rokeby. And Rokeby Road, it's bound to get reconstructed, and they'll put a bigger pipe in then that'll reduce potential flooding more too. So,
Peter, if you don't mind, maybe we'll call this question and then maybe you can speak to Mr. Lipsack. a little bit later on when,
Certainly.
and we can carry on with our meeting. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, Counselor, we have any more questions from council on this issue before we put it to the resolution? We have more people who would like to speak. Certainly. But yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll ask. Yeah, can you? Do you mind? Are you willing or wishing to speak? Okay, can you come up here to the microphone, please? It's our policy that we ask you. Okay, we'll get it up. Yep. Would you please identify yourself for the record?
Ron Patton, 253 Rokeby Side Road, bordering the construction site.
253, did you say,
Yes.
Rokeby Road? Okay, just give us a second here. We'll get that map up.
Heard some say about planting some trees or something.
This is not about the drainage, it's about the site plan, about trees, wouldn't it be, Cephas?
Well, someone mentioned
Yes.
some trees, so I just thought I'd bring it up again.
Okay. Peter, are you prepared to answer that in regards to the drainage, or would that be for Cephas? Thank you, Cephas.
Okay, well, this is back. What's up with it?
Sure about that.
No way to give us a little bit more. Especially in this area. I'm really glad you left the corners. Beautiful.
Mhm.
One of this corner property. I don't know if that's
35 feet.
35 feet.
Yeah.
It looks like it is. Nothing. Us, you guys. It's under inflation. Actually, growing there. Just wondering if possibly straighten that out a bit. And,
Mr. Patton, I'm sorry, we are in council session here. Do you mind speaking through the microphone? Yeah, I know you needed the map and we know where you're talking about here now. So your question was what to the
I'm just
engineers?
wondering if you give us a little more buffer area on that corner, because where our properties narrow down to the construction area, there's not much room there. And
So-
everything's pretty much been taken down.
Okay,
There's a couple little twigs there. And you know, unless we get maybe a little bit more room for some natural growth to occur, it's going to be wide open.
so what you're looking for is maybe some plant,
Well,
some
not
tree plant.
necessarily. I mean, nature will take over if it's got room.
Right.
But that corner is so tight that, you know, you need a certain degree of foliage to cover an area. You know, not, 35 feet sounds like a lot, but really, with all that property, you can't spare a little, another 50 feet or something. I don't know. I mean,
Right.
anyways, that's all I had to say.
No,
you.
thank you for those comments. Cephas, you'll make note of that and maybe discuss this. All right, we're good? Yeah. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Patton. Anything else? And again, your name, please, for the record.
Hi, my name's Ron Vanderhage. I live at 247 Rokeby for 50 years. Mayor, council, the only question, obviously, it's about the drain, but I'm more concerned about the trees and especially the trees along the west side. The diggings already came, right? It's already dug out. So was there a study done or anything that's going to protect those trees from falling over? A north wind, right? You remove all the roots from the one side, that makes it weak. It's only going to fall one way. So if this does happen, what are we going to do about it? If there is a problem. And because now you're putting that drain so close to that line and those trees go down, now there is no solution. And I'd like to know how big those trees are in that buffer zone. But that's about it. All we really want is privacy. Moving the drain is fine.
I
We
understand.
just want the trees to stay. There's something what's there, which is not much left. That's all.
Well, to keep this on the path, Ron, what we're dealing here with is a drainage report and adopting a drainage report for bylaw approval. And I believe what we're concerned with, Cephas, if I'm correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is a site plan issue in regards to the trees. Am I correct? it really doesn't pertain to this drainage report. I think we're pretty safe to say that. So that's something we will deal with under site plan control
Okay.
when it occurs and not with this
Well,
drainage.
as long as council knows my concerns, and I don't have to come back to
I
it.
believe council is well aware of those.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
we
guys.
were from before. Thank you, Ron. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions from members of council? Councilor Rosehart?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I guess I'd like clarification. If we approve the drain where it is now, I guess that concerns the trees that are along the drain that are going to tip over. So I guess I'm a little confused.
Cephas, can you explain where we are right now as far as the work that has been done compared to what's going to be done with this drain?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor, members of council, through to Councillor Rosehart. So the, I guess, concession granted has been, as alluded to in my report at the last meeting, has been that we granted 5 meters from the property line for the fence to be placed. And then further to that, it's another 1.5 meters back from that, so 6.5 meters before the actual ditch is dug. I think the center line of the ditch is actually a bit further away than I thought. So I guess what we're hoping, or what we believe, is that the distance that has been provided, the buffer that has been provided and agreed to, is sufficient to maintain, not impact the trees negatively. So that's our belief, and certainly that is the concession that has been granted. So.
Mayor, and can I just address this to Mr. Canchild then? So when I went there, the tree roots where the drain is dug are bare. So half of those tree roots are already in open space. There's no ground. So as Ron was saying, those trees will fall over. So then there'll be absolutely no buffer along there because it's right by his property line. So I guess that's my question. Those trees are going to fall over if that stays where it is. Is that right, if I approve this drain?
I'm not a qualified tree biologist. I don't think there's one in the room. But I have seen the site as well, and I've seen that the roots exposed are nowhere near the half mentioned, I'm sorry, and they are relatively minor in number. So I guess you can draw your own conclusions from that.
Thank you.
Benner, would you like to put some light on this?
What we did out there is we surveyed where the drip line of the trees was, and that's typically how far the roots go out as well. And that's typically what the EIS consultants tell us to stay beyond. Seeing roots out there might not be from those trees that you're looking at there, because there was a lot of trees in that area that were removed outside of that buffer as well. And so those would still have roots that were in the ground that weren't taken out. They pulled some of the stumps out, but the smaller roots farther away, they don't all get taken out with that process. So that's part of what you would see. We're 6.5 meters away from the tree, and bigger trees, the roots do go further. We've used this setback on gravel pits, sand pits, things like that as well, and we have not had issues with them. These are in along a fence row, and there has been trees taking out in the interior. And one of the things is when you do thin out a bush, that it does raise the potential that trees could fall down because they're exposed to more wind. And that won't be necessarily because we've cut into the roots. It's just because they have more exposure. The other thing with these trees here is some of them are getting quite old. Obviously, trees aren't going to last forever. There was a question about the size of the trees for replanting, and Cephas kept asking for bigger and bigger, but you hit a limit on what's reasonable to replant. If you put a bigger tree in, the chance of survival diminishes. And I got this personal experience at home. I planted a row of tall trees along my laneway and put a lot of effort into it. In the same year, I planted a whole bunch of little 2-foot tall seedlings, and the seedlings have done better than the big trees after 25 years. So again, if you're right in town, you're only doing a few trees, yeah, they can be, looked after, homeowners watering it. This is out in the field that aren't going to get constant care. It's sandy ground there. It is not a real deep water table. That'll help in their favor, but we are limited on how big we can go before we're fighting a losing battle, and that you'll lose the trees anyways. So we've got, are they 6 feet, 1.8 meters? Is that the last one? And actually just getting pricing for large trees has been very difficult. It'll be this fall is the earliest that they can go in as well. There's was no stock available for the spring in some of the bigger nurseries. So
Just maybe make a personal comment. Paul Gagnon from the Long Point Conservation Authority is an expert on what sort of trees can go where and survive. He's been doing this for a number of years, and he's
the one
probably,
that planted at my place 25 years
he's
ago.
probably one of the better resources to call on to deal with this, and I'm sure he'd be available for that,
Yeah.
to help with that cause. So I thank you. Any further questions from anyone in the gallery? Seeing none, questions from council? Seeing none, we have a resolution. I will say the decisions, if approved, first and second reading of the bylaw will be required. Would that be done tonight, Deputy Clerk? Okay, thank you. And the third reading will be at the next one. Councillor Esseltine, would you read the proposed resolution?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Luciani, that council accepts the engineer's report submitted by Spriet Associates dated March 22, 2022 in reference to the AJ Smith drain, and will consider a bylaw to provide for the drainage works for the first and second reading only later on the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any further questions to that? Councillor Parker?
Not really a question, more so a comment. I'm disappointed in a couple things. I'm disappointed that the drain is already dug or has already been dug. I'm also disappointed that a staff member told the residents that they're being difficult. These residents have been through quite a bit with this development. So I think we need to give it to them and allow them to voice their frustrations, because it has been a frustrating process for them. I am glad to see that CJDL is, or that the developer is going to plant trees along the line, because that is something that has meant quite a bit to the residents. But I'm just disappointed that the work was done before this has even been approved by council. I think that the steps need to be followed. I'm not going to support this just because people haven't followed the steps. That's very disappointing to me. Thank you.
The issue here is about receiving the drainage report. Site plan is certainly part of this, but it's not directly with this. Site plan, I think, is where the concerns are with the removal and so on. So, but thank you for your comments. Great. Anything? I'm sorry. Did you have something else?
I'm speaking to the drainage report. That's where I am. I know what site plan approval is. I'm disappointed that the drain has already been dug. That's what my comments are. Thank you.
Comments are noted. Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Galvesi?
Well, I would echo Councillor Parker's sentiments. We visited the site and the drain was dug, and there was a considerable amount of water in there. Like, I felt there was a lot of water in it. So, and there were a lot of trees removed. I am glad to hear that there are 6-foot trees being put back and they're not just little saplings. So I do appreciate that. But however, things were done out of order, without permits, without approval, and it's not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Molnar, you have comments?
Yeah, a couple of questions. Thanks very much. And thank you, Deputy Mayor, for your leadership there. One thing through to Madam Clerk, because you referenced it.
Up there.
Sorry?
And can you do, we're just going to get a techie person here, Mayor. Try that, Mayor, please.
Through you to the clerk, then first and second reading without prejudicing, but with a positive support of the resolution on the floor. The chair mentioned that the third reading would be at the next meeting, so I'm asking the Madam Clerk, is that correct?
have to refer to the, to Spreets. I can't recall, we still have to provide notice for the Court of Revision, and we need to make sure that we coordinate that with the County of Norfolk. So, sorry, can I just ask you, Brandon, what the notification period is? So Spreets has indicated likely not the next council meeting, but the meeting after that, which would be
Okay.
end of June.
So I'll make comments to the near future rather than the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Is there a connected drain on the property that Armtech is developing for the introduction of significant employment and assessment in the community? Is there a connected drain on that property yet?
Mr. Penner, do you have that answer?
No, they've not connected yet. There's this.
Can you take the podium, please? I'm sorry, the mic.
Well, I should have asked that question when Mr. Penner was there. I'm speaking to the resolution.
Answer your question for you.
Yeah, I'm not aware that they've connected any drains to it yet. They had stripped topsoil and left the open ditch across the property and lowered the grade on either side of it. So there's quite a hump that to get into the drain yet. So water can't drain into it yet. There's 2 driveway crossings they did so they could strip topsoil on the other side of the ditch so they have access to it. And there's probably been a little bit of water, but they have not built the on-site drainage system yet. And that will go, when it is built, it is directed into the storm pond to reduce the flow that does go into the drain. But I'm not aware that they've started that at all yet.
Well, thank you for that confirmation. I apologize for calling you back. I was really reiterating comments that were made by Mr. Whitmer on the 25th of April, which speaks directly to the resolution. It speaks directly to the resolution that was on the floor on the 25th of April, which has returned here to council tonight, is that there is no drain yet. So much of the conversation has ultimately been about site plan that this council asked for, that this council got through resolution, and that this council adopted through resolution. I believe it was in February of this year. So outside of further reconsiderations and moving backwards, this council has adopted a site plan. I applaud the passion. I listened, and I've connected with neighbors as well. I've heard on 2 occasions now the closest abutting neighbor saying it's not about the drainage. And yet here we are talking on a resolution that potentially may not be supported, that has everything to do with the Drainage Act. Now, we don't actually deal a lot with the Drainage Act here, like some rural communities that actually have their own drainage officers. You go to Southwest Oxford, other communities, probably even in Norfolk. I should not speak to something I don't know in its entirety, but that deal with a lot higher number of drainage issues. And I thank those at Spreet and Associates with their expertise, CJDL with their engineering acumen. And I recognize and thank the chair tonight's comments relative to the goodwill of the community and bringing in LPRCA representation to ensure that proper plantings are done to satisfy the buffer that are quite frankly are and should be a part of the overall site plan, but they're not a contingent on the resolution that's on the floor. I think there was one other comment that I would make that reiterate that came up on the meeting of April the 25th. And that was in reference to Mr. Whitmer again, and perhaps the comments that I would recall that were on the presentation that evening is, it was to Brendan, excuse me, Mr. Whitner. Does it, quote unquote, does the drain have to be moved? And the response was absolutely yes. So I'm dealing with a J.A. Smith drain, a stamped document by Spreet and Associates, supporting information from CJDL, another engineering firm with high reputation and done a lot of valuable work for this community and in drainage and in stormwater management and even to the benefit of this corporation. So I will be supporting the resolution tonight. I will continue to support those that are looking for, a better, more sustainable buffer. But this is about a drain. And it's about a process that seems to have gotten moderately sidelined. And I think relative to that, I guess those are pretty much my comments. And for the first time in representing the citizens of this community and sitting on this side of the chair, Madam Clerk, I'll ask for a recorded vote.
The mayor has requested a recorded vote. We should, yeah, you did read the resolution. It's read. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Then starting with Mayor Molnar, can you indicate whether you're in favor of or in opposition to the resolution?
In favor.
Councillor Rosehart? Councillor Parker? Oh, sorry.
Opposed?
Councillor Parker?
Opposed.
Councillor Luciani?
Favor?
Councillor Govesi?
Opposed.
Councillor Esseltine?
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Barris?
In favor. Motion is carried. Thank you. Now, the next one we have to deal with is the future, the quarter revision, which would be happening sometime, I guess, in June. Am I correct, Clerk? From what I'm hearing, time-wise? All right, let's just say in the near future. All right, to be safe. I'm good.
Yes, we have to coordinate with County of Norfolk, so it will likely be the second meeting in June.
Thank you very much. Councillor Luciani, you have a resolution.
Yeah. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Rosehart that the following two council members be appointed to the Court of Revisions to be held at a future council date. Deputy Mayor Barris and Councillor Esseltine.
I'm willing to take that responsibility, Councillor Esseltine.
Yes, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. We're going to move now into Committee of Adjustment. Councillor Rosehart, resolution. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Parker, that council move into Committee of Adjustment to hear an application for minor variance at 6:53 PM. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. We have a minor variance. Councillor Rosehart, will you shut it off, please? Good. Little technical difficulties. I think we're working well now. We have a minor variance application A08-22 at 79 Woodland Crescent. This is a public meeting held under the Planning Act for the purpose of hearing minor variance application A08-22. This process allows any person in attendance the opportunity to make a presentation to council. If anyone who appeals this decision has not provided council with oral or written submissions at the public meeting, then the local planning appeal tribunal has the power to dismiss the appeal. If you speak to the application, please state your name and street address. And now we're going to ask the planner to give an overview of the minor variance application.
To allow for the construction of a single detached dwelling. The lands are on the north side of Woodland Crescent, known as 79 Woodland Crescent in Tilsonburg. The requested relief is to facilitate construction of a detached dwelling with approximately 3,600 square feet in size on the property. The subject property is zoned R2-23, which does provide for a number of site-specific provisions, including a reduced rear yard depth, a reduced setback from the quarter town line, a reduced exterior side yard setback, and an increased coverage of 45%. In this case, the minor lot coverage increase is not anticipated to have a negative impact on neighboring property owners, and the applicant has submitted a detailed lot grading plan to demonstrate that the proposed drainage patterns and the dwelling can accommodate all required runoff in accordance with the town's engineering design standards. In light of this, staff recommend approval of the application.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Are there any council members? Do you have any questions in regards to the application? Seeing none. Now there's an opportunity for the public, anyone in the gallery, the applicant or agent to speak in favor of the application. We have Agent Trevor Benjamins, I'm assuming.
Hi, good evening. Yes, I'm Trevor Benjamins. I'm the agent acting on behalf of the owner, John Peters. Thank you to Eric Gilbert and Oxford County Planning staff for the supportive report that you prepared. We believe that it's a fairly minor adjustment to the lot coverage from 45 to 47.5. So I'm just here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Just going to say, is there anyone here prior to council asking questions to you? Is there anyone here in the gallery that would like to speak in opposition to the application? And seeing none, there are no registered speakers. Questions for Mr. Benjamins from members of council? Seeing none. Resolution, Councillor Parker.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Galvezi, that the Town of Tilsenberg Committee of Adjustment approves application file A08-22 submitted by Johan Peters for lands described as part of Block 86, Plan 41M 139, Part 4 of 41R 10084 in the Town of Tilsenberg as it relates to relief from section 7.5.23.2.1.1 R2-23 zone provisions, lot coverage maximum to increase the maximum permitted lot coverage from 45% of the lot area to 47.5% of the lot area to facilitate the construction of a single detached dwelling, subject to the following condition. A building permit for the proposed dwelling shall be issued within 1 year of the date of the committee's decision.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. You've heard the resolution. Any further questions? And seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillor Galvezi, to take us out of Committee of Adjustment.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Esseltine, that council move out of the Committee of Adjustment and move back into regular council session at 6:59 p.m.
Thank you. We'll call that question. All in favor? And that motion again is carried. Thank you very much. On to planning reports. Mr. Gilbert's still here. Potter's Gate Phase 4, minor zoning modification request. Mr. Gilbert?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Before you is a request from the agent for the developer. What has happened in this case is once the draft plan was approved, they've gone to their architectural consultant and their surveyor, and they've noticed that some of the proposed dwelling designs and lots don't exactly fit what they had proposed, what they had thought they had proposed. So they're asking that council deem these to be minor changes. So section 3417 of the Planning Act does allow town council to make a determination that after you've held a public hearing, but before you've adopted a bylaw, you can make a determination that these changes are minor and that you don't have to give any further public notice to the public. And the bylaw is approved without a further public meeting or the developer having to submit a new zoning application. So the requested changes in staff's mind, they are minor. For lot frontages, for a corner lot, they had proposed 10.5 meters and the revised proposal is 10.2 meters. For the lot frontage for an interior unit of a townhouse, they had requested 7.5 meters. In this case, they're now requesting 7.2 meters. For an end unit on a townhouse, the lot frontage requested was 9 meters. Their proposal is 8.7 meters. There's two lots that don't, sorry, there's one lot that doesn't meet the required rear yard depth. So the proposed zoning had a 28.65 meter rear yard depth. They're requesting a 28.5 meter rear yard depth. And the other request that they've made is interior side yard setbacks. The bylaw usually requires 1.5 meters on one side and 1.2 on the other. And they've requested 1.2 meters on both sides. Staff have reviewed these and have the opinion that they are indeed minor. And there wouldn't be a tremendous amount of benefit to having a second public meeting and making them submit a second zone change and associated timelines with that. Accordingly, we recommend that council affirm that the changes are minor and can pass the bylaw.
Thank you very much. Questions from members of council? Councillor Esseltine, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Through you to Eric. Eric, I'm just wondering then these changes, do they just apply to like one house per change or is it multiple buildings or homes?
The first request in the letter, the R323 and R324 zones, those would apply to all the townhouse blocks. The other two requests, the second request only applies to one lot. And then the third request does apply to most of the single attached dwelling lots.
And how many townhomes in the project altogether?
I believe there's 29.
Wow, okay. And the other one with multiple homes, how many in that?
The other lots are all single lots. I think
All
there's
single.
53 single detached
Wow, is
lots.
this unusual? I know in my time here, I've never experienced this kind of thing.
It is somewhat unusual. Usually when we have the plans, the developer and their consultants have plotted everything out ahead of time.
Mhm.
In this case, for whatever reason, that didn't happen.
Okay, but you don't think it's a major issue to be concerned about?
No, it's my opinion that they're minor and really they're so minor that I don't believe any member of the public would have a legitimate complaint about
Sure.
the additional, 30 centimeters in some of these.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Parker.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Mr. Gilbert. Eric, were these lot frontage, were they already reduced in the initial zone application?
To you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Parker, they were. For the corner lots, for the end units of the townhouse units, I think they're 11 meters is the normal. And on the interior units, I believe it's 8.5. So they were already, notice was already given that they were asking for a smaller lot frontage. We're just further increasing that deficiency.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor or Deputy Mayor. I know it's not a lot of space. Is there any concerns with vehicles overlapping onto the road or sidewalks in those areas?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. No, because none of the requests is for shorter driveways. It's just for narrower frontages. And it does sometimes happen, like when they do the townhouse blocks, they're left as blocks and then later on they put in the foundations. And we've seen a couple of them come back for further relief after the foundations are poured. But yeah, so we did give them relief, but none of these will exacerbate any parking concerns.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Galvezi.
I had questions through you, Deputy Mayor, similar to Councillor Parker's, as I was concerned about shortening the frontage. So you said that the minimum is 11?
Currently for a corner unit, yeah.
Oh, so they're asking for an interior unit and an end unit. So I'm unclear what, is that like a townhome?
Yes.
Interior, so the entire townhome would include the end units and the interior units.
So a typical townhouse would have, say, 4 units. The end unit would be the 2 outside ends, and then the interior would be the 2 inside units. So the end units are typically in the zoning bylaw, they're 11 meter lot frontages. However, they were also given relief of the exterior side yard setback, so they don't have to have the same setback to the road that a normal townhouse would, which is why it was reduced to 9 meters.
If I may continue, one more question through Deputy Mayor. I'm unclear if you shorten the front yard, how that doesn't affect parking. And like, you could say it's only 30 centimeters, but 30 centimeters is, 2.5 feet. And that would affect like a bumper hanging over onto a sidewalk.
So there's a couple of provisions. One is the driveway width. So the driveway width for the properties, residential properties, can't exceed 50% of the lot frontage. So in this case, if the lot frontage is 9 meters, half of that would be 4.5 meters. So if you take away another foot, or the 30 centimeters, that would be like 4.2 meters. So you're only losing a foot of width in the driveway, and a typical parking space is 2.7 meters wide. So you're not losing a parking space. You're losing space on the driveway, but you're not losing a full parking stall.
Anything further? Okay. Seeing none, we will call the question. Councillor Esseltine, would you read the resolution, please?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Luciani, that council receives the request from Potter's Gate Phase 4 minor modifications to zoning as information, and further that council affirm that the requested changes are appropriate and minor in nature, and further notice is not required in accordance with Section 2417 of the Planning Act. I'm sorry, 3417 of the Planning Act.
Thank you, Councillor Esseltine. Is there anything further to this resolution? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is defeated. I'm sorry? No, it was still again, in favor. There was 3 in favor and 4 opposed. Am I correct? Yeah. 3 in favor and 4 opposed.
Mayor.
I'm assuming, Mayor Moner, you were in favor of this resolution.
I am indeed in favor.
You're in favor. That leaves 3 in favor and 4 opposed. It still leaves 4 opposed, correct? Yeah. The motion is defeated. Mr. Gilbert, where does that take us?
Just point of order. But I think you've asked the same question. Sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Question. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mayor Moner.
I think you asked the same question. It was just point of order on any next steps.
Yeah. Okay. So my question is to Eric, where does that take us next?
So now if the developer does want that relief, he'll have to submit his own change application. Pay the application fee and go through the regular planning process and then come back to council for a decision if they choose to move forward.
Thank you. Okay. On now to the next item on the agenda is the delegations for A+ Link architecture presentations, the public sector standard and the Tilsonburg Community Center. And with that, we have virtually with us Mr. Ed J. Vandermerel, correct me if I'm wrong, the principal architect and partner and heritage consultant, electrically present. And Mr. Vandermerel, we're going to ask you to make your presentation. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. And I'm hoping the presentation will be put on the screen so I can present through that. This in essence is
real trouble hearing. Anne, can you help us as well as getting that presentation on the screen? A couple of things are just holding back. Okay, we're just going to ask you to maybe speak a little louder. We're all here in council chambers and we're just waiting for it to come up on the screen. And when it does, we'll just ask you to raise your voice a little bit so we can all hear you. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Apologies that I couldn't make it in person, but I had a back-to-back meeting. So anyway, it is what it is. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but it's very faint. So just ask that maybe raise your voice. And we don't have your presentation up yet. She's just working on that.
Because I can hear you loud and clear.
Good. It looks like we have our presentation up. Go ahead, Ed. You're welcome to speak. Just keep your voice as loud as you possibly can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So in essence, this evening's presentation is an update of a presentation we did a number of months back. We have been working with the Tilsenberg team just to confirm budget and items that are covered under the budget. And so here again, the site plan shows the main entrance and the addition we're proposing for the front of the building. You can see the main entrance in blue, and we're removing all the barrier-free obstacles and putting a new entrance in. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Oops. Is this slide 2, please?
You were there, and you were back.
Yeah. So this is a lower level floor plan, which identifies scope of work. And we have a new entry with change rooms and lobby. We have an existing pool, which we're doing deck resurfacing and a barrier-free pool ramp. We have the existing change rooms and the pool office renovations. And then the health club, we have some renovations in there as well. The new ice melt pit and resurfacing storage area, I think we're tabling as a future project to meet the budget that was assigned to us after going through revised analysis, post-COVID analysis. So I'm not sure if we're post-COVID, but we're getting there. Next slide, please. This is a diagram of the upper level then. And there's existing pool viewing that we're addressing, accessible pool viewing that we're entertaining in the renovations, a new entry with the change rooms. And we're looking at admin offices and the customer service desk area. Next slide, please. So this is a more detailed plan of the lower level. You can see the entry with the arrow into a main lobby. This has not changed at all from earlier presentations, but we have a main desk that is kind of our point of entry and monitors all accesses through to the change rooms, to the upper level. We have an elevator and also access to the existing building. And you can also see on this diagram the addition of the barrier-free pool ramp as well, just on the lower part of the pool. Next slide, please. And this is the upper level schematic. You can see the accessible pool viewing. We have some minor revisions just north of that with the ramp area and the office area. We have a meeting room. We have an upper lobby. You can see how the elevator and the stairs are accessing, and then we have customer service renovations. So next slide, please. So we're introducing some updated renderings, entering design development. We try and take our schematic massing plans and improve upon them in terms of materials and feel. And so this is the actual location where all those stairs are right now. We're obliterating them so we can actually have a drop off and access. Next slide, please. And with some signage and some graphics to show you where the entry is and some landscaping, some seating area along the edges. Next slide, please. And to bring in a lot of natural light into the space. It's really predominant in a lot of the recreation centers we do. So you can see this is from the customer service location, looking back to the entrance door, out to the glass on the left is towards the drop-off area. Next slide, please. And this is the upper level. We're trying to open up the building, existing buildings, so there's a connection from the lower to upper and brings light across. And you can see meeting room of the new addition across the way as well. In the center there is the access down to the pool change areas, and when I say down, it's via a ramp, and so that's to accommodate a nice slope and accessible to the pool level, because there are so many levels in this facility that we discovered early on. Next slide, please. Showing the customer service desk, we have some pattern of tile. We have the railing looking into the upper level, which connects right around to the right. So you can see how we're exposing the existing building. We're using the elevator shaft not only to get us up to the upper level and down to the lowest level, but also using it structurally at a point. And then just to the right of that elevator, we have a set of stairs that we're introducing as well to bring you right adjacent to that elevator shaft. Next slide, please. And so, yeah, just bringing some seating area, some meeting area. This is the upper level. Just to the right is the shaft, and the also the barrier-free viewing is beyond there, and some meeting room space. Next slide, please. And this is the, you can see to the right is the exterior of the building where the entrance is, and we're trying to bring light into the change room area, which is gender neutral across to the pool. We like to bring these patterns into the tile as well to brighten up the spaces. But you can see how open and connected it is from inside to outside and connecting the existing pool. Next slide, please. And just a close-up of one of the change locations through to the pool, how bright it is, some of the materials we propose to use. Next slide, please. And these are precedents, a precedent diagram that we used early on just to show graphics, connection via glass to the pool, wayfinding. You can see on some of the signage, it's very bold, very bright. People will know where to go through the building, which is first and foremost in our opinion. And then just some glazing with graphics on it that you can see how it casts shadows across. It gives some semi-privacy and some interest as well. Next slide, please. Oh, I guess that's the last slide. So that in general is the updated presentation. We've been working on this for a number of months with the cost consultant just to make sure that we're aligning with the proposed funding that was provided. And so that's where we're at. It's not as exciting as drainage, but I hope it was enjoyed by everybody.
Well, it's a lot prettier than a muddy field, I'll tell you that. It's very well done. Thank you very much for that. There's quite a bit of information here, and it looks great. I'm sure that members of council might have some comments or questions on it at the present time. But prior to that, Mr. Baird, do you think would you like to make a comment? You've been working with these people for quite some time. I'd like to know things like the cogen with the energy levels and whatnot. I'm sure you've discussed some of that things, those technical details, and I wonder if you might shed a little light on this, on your comments working with these people.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor and Council. We're really excited to get to this stage. You recall we saw some earlier designs that Ed and his team put together, and working closely with Dave and our other colleagues in RCP. There was a bit of blue skying and exciting just to be able to kind of come up with some renderings. The challenge, as Ed has mentioned, is when we originally made that grant application, it was 2019. The world was a different place, and we know now it's 2020. How far the dollar goes, and the ability for contractors, if we've tried to do anything on the home front, finding qualified contractors that are willing to provide a competitive bid is proving to be very challenging. So Ed mentioned going through this costing process with their costing consultant to get current values. We've had to scale back, somewhat the size and scale and massing of the project while still following the intent, that being keeping it barrier free, accessible, and so on. It's definitely we're in for a refresh for sure. We really won't know until we go to tender and we see those bids come in. You recall the federal government and the provincial government have each contributed significantly to the $5 million project. But anything over that 5 million, it's up to the town to pick up. So we're very cognizant of that. I know Dave has done a lot of work with that as well. And keep in mind, this project it also includes the new splash pad, which is currently under construction. So that's a $500,000 project in itself. Things are coming together quite nicely. As Ed had mentioned, he presented those preliminary designs to you. And I think Councilor Rosehart, Councilor Gilvesi, you had also mentioned you'd like to see sort of the next step. Is there opportunities for looking at different things, and that is what Ed and his team have done at A+ for us. So really, with that, I'm glad to answer any questions. But before I do that, I just need to introduce that whole concept of, we have to be able to afford the project. We all want it to proceed, but we also don't want to cut our nose off to spite our face. That we know the building and in particular the aquatic center needs a lot of work. So we're staying true to that, renovating what we can, not tearing things out, trying to make a really nice grand entrance. The one thing that was mentioned too, the customer service center, working with staff and the users, our plan is to relocate that to make it sort of a greeting point that will provide access into the pool, into the health club, into the arenas, instead of the multi-level, which of course has been a challenge. Still, the users will come in and be directed to their proper entry points, say for the hockey players and the spectators, all of that will work out. But we think we've got a really good plan to move forward. And the next step, as is recommended in the motion, is that we can accept what's been put forward here this evening, and Ed and his team can continue with the final design, getting it tender ready and issued this summer. The timeline would be bids perhaps closing later in the summer, early fall, contract being awarded, and we have until December 31st next year to complete the whole project. So I think we're feeling good about the timeline, but again, it's the cost factor is going to be brought before you. That would be really the next step. So
I think I believe costs will continue to escalate. So the sooner we can come up with a resolution to proceed, the better on this particular one. So we have questions. Councillor Parker, thank you for that, Mr. Beard.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I'm not sure if it should be directed towards Ed or Director Baird. So with this plan, the ice melt pit and storage area in that end, or at the arena side, that would be put on hold and need more funding, or is that included in the project right now?
perhaps Deputy Mayor, I could answer that. So Ed and his team have designed the melt pit. It's not ostentatious. It's a really functional design, but because it's separated from the pool area, it was a little bit of an add-on extra. We think that project makes sense to hive off and hold that for, there may be other funding opportunities that will come in the future, and we could easily do that one. We can't leave out the center core of, say, the barrier-free washrooms or not renovate the existing ones. We'd rather focus on the pool area. So to answer Councillor's question, it won't be included. Perhaps we will include it as a provisional item in the tender, so at least there's a price, and that can help us with budgeting in the future.
Thanks, Chris.
We'll go around the corner. Councillor Esseltine, did you have a comment?
A few questions, if that's okay. Yeah, so I was just curious, then I know the budget thing and the time and all of that sort of thing, that things have changed, but I just wondered if you could outline the key things that won't be included that we may have expected, given the proposal that was originally put forward.
Thank you to the Deputy Mayor. That's an excellent question. We're really staying the course with the exception of the ice melt pit.
Can you start that again? She had her.
Yes, sorry. Great question. With the exception of the ice melt pit, which I just mentioned, how we've going to hive that off of the contract at this point, we're still staying true to the intent of the grant. That's important. But we have scaled down. I believe, Ed, the main entrance was much larger. We've scaled that back somewhat. And I think the pool viewing area upstairs, we've been able to do a few modifications there. But we think it's really important to renovate the existing change rooms. And the original plan was really impressive. But we just think from a cost perspective, it's going to be just a little too much. So Ed and again, his team have come up with some really great ideas how to renovate those to match. They'll still look, fresh and new, but they won't be as we had originally looked at. So cost savings and operationally, they're still going to be the same how they're used.
Excellent. I just wondered about the pool. Sorry about that. Okay, is the pool ceiling delayed or postponed? Did I see that in the presentation material?
You might. Through Deputy Mayor, the pool, we're looking at new tiling. There's going to be a new lighting. The access ramp that will come in on the pool side is all included. There's storage. We do have a pool roof that needs work. Again, these will be bid as provisional items. But if for some reason, we need to defer the roof, into 2023, there'll be an opportunity through the budget process to look at that. So that answers your question.
The pool floor then, and the tiling on the where you walk, that's all included in the project still?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I'm getting distracted by the mic here, but I just had a couple of other questions. Okay, so this project has been long. We've been looking for something like this for a very long time. Once it's over and done with, how long should we be good for before we need to look to doing something like this again? What would the life expectancy be of a project like this?
Again, another great question. The existing pool is about 4 decades old, and Ed, I think our intentions are to do something similar, another 4 decades or certainly a 25-meter pool. It would be great to have a 50-meter pool, but we have to have what the community can afford and within that building footprint. So I think we're good for that time frame, Ed.
I would agree with that. There are no issues with the actual basin of a structural basin of the pool. And so basically what we're dealing with is finishes, which is great. So once we have it newly tiled, and in effect, the specifications for that new tile should last a lot longer than tile that was installed 40 years ago, just because of product improvements in dealing with the water. So I would agree with Chris that the longevity should be at least or more than what you have now.
Thank you very much. I love the light, like all the glass and the light, and it really looks good. I look forward to getting this underway. Thank you.
Councillor Luciani.
Actually, the conversation at this point has covered most of my my concerns, but I will say that I like what I see so far. Thank you.
Thank you for those positive comments. We'll go around to Councillor Gilvesi.
Thank you. Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor. I'm not sure who wants to answer this. I have concerns about the location of the lobby. So there's not actually any accessible parking near where the new lobby is going to be located. So when I think easy access for accessible parking, I think of the back parking lot with the sliding doors, and then there's easy accessibility to the lobby. There isn't anything around that area at all that would provide that.
We've actually provided some lay-by parking for barrier-free right in that entry zone. So the barrier-free parking would be adjacent to that entry, rather than, just located where I think the future parking lot is. So we're accommodating that in the current plans, because this design is about accessibility.
Deputy Mayor, if I could also add to Ed's comments, at the it would be the west end of the pool. There is handicap accessible parking right there. So that's still going to be maintained with a walkway that will come around that corner of the building and join into that new entrance. So I think we're pretty confident based on the number of available spaces. We don't want to put them too far away, of course, but I think just in general terms, having access, whether you choose to park by this new entrance, or if you choose to park in some of the other accessible parking on the other side of the building, you'll still be able to enter in and, from all existing entry points. This is clearly going to become the new main entrance, but we will definitely keep that in mind as we start to develop the site further.
Councillor Rosehart, we'll go to you, and then the mayor, and then I think the CAO would like to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Chris. Chris, on page 73, you mentioned that being a seating area. And yet there looks like there's a cubicle there and there's some chairs there. What is in that cubicle? I don't know where that goes to.
The image that Councilor Whitehart is referring to is.
Oh, sorry.
Excuse me. It is as you go from the new customer service entrance, you go down a fairly shallow ramp, and this is where you enter into the new family change rooms. So it's just a small seating area. It could be where a parent might wait for their kids to come out of their swimming lessons. It's just, again, an area, a congregation area for users in the facility.
Seems like there's a lot of walking space, a lot of open space. Now we also have another meeting room, and I'm just wondering, what is that other meeting room for?
Through Deputy Mayor, the meeting room is basically for the community's purposes. So, we find we're so cramped for space. We do have the existing office area that's going to be kind of rejigged so we can get a couple more people. Hopefully that gets them out of the basement We all know that the ice hockey dressing rooms, we need more real estate there. So opportunities there, but the intent of that meeting is really for the general public. It could be a service club, small meetings. It could be booked for birthday parties. That's very popular with the kids, to have a swim and then have their cake or treats or whatever brought in. Just basically a community room that would be made available through the hours of operation at the center.
One more question. So we have a customer service that's on the first floor. Are we also having one on the second floor?
Through Deputy Mayor, that's a great question. No, the intention here is the existing customer service center on that side. It's got the gating up there. That would be probably frosted in with some glass, and that would become office space for others that are off in closets and cubbies throughout the building. We would focus customer service at the new location in the new main lobby, because as a control point, we receive in patrons, they pay or show their ID or however, go down into the new family changing rooms, the existing renovated change rooms, into the health club, or down the hall into the arena dressing area. So it's much better control. We currently have staff that have to be in two locations, one at the health club and one at the customer service. We're able to provide much better service, I think, for our patrons coming into the building.
Follow up?
Do you have any questions?
No, I have a follow up.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Councilor Rosehart, you have one more follow up.
So what happens to the people that enter from the parking lot in through the sliding doors then at the time? Do they first go down to the customer service center before they can go to the arenas or the second or any other where in that floor?
Through the mayor, deputy mayor, as I understand it, those people, the users, that tends to be what we call our arena entrance. So players come in, go down to the dressing area, spectators go up to meeting rooms that we have upstairs, or we'll be able to continue to go down and through and come out at the new customer service desk there. So it will all be addressed with signage to direct people. If they know where they're going, we don't need to really help them. They're well on their way. But it would be for visitors, could be hockey tournaments, swim meets, this sort of thing, where it would be, a typical location where you would go for information, to pay, to register for programs, that sort of thing.
So then there'll be nobody on the second floor to watch anybody coming and going on that floor, I guess is my question.
Again, through the deputy mayor, I'm not sure where we've got to the point operationally where it's going to work at this point. But as we work through this, we'll be able to, make sure, obviously, we want to provide the best customer service possible. And we also don't want people just wandering through lost or creating any trouble for us. But I always appreciate your thoughts on that. I think we have the same idea.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
And Mayor Molnar, do you have some questions?
No, I have no, thanks very much. I just, thanks, Mr. Vandermeer. I have no questions for the delegation. I'll reserve the questions and comments when the resolution's on the floor, but thank you very much, Mr. Vandermeer.
Thank you.
Mr. Pratt, you had something to comment.
Thank you through the chair, directed to Director Baird. So Director Baird, when we started this process, there was a thought and a hope that we could address the arena change rooms by adding some additional space at the front and rearranging some of the office space. Was that achieved by chance, or what is the plan?
Through the deputy mayor, Mr. Pratt, I think always known there's been a deficit for arena change room. That wasn't specifically related to the grant application, but it was a motion that was put forward by Councillor Parker as part of the budget process, where we're going to try to identify opportunities to ease up some space, something primarily for the younger girls hockey. As I'd mentioned to Councillor Rosehart, by reconfiguring the upstairs customer service area, we might be able to provide a couple workstation spaces in addition to what we've got now, so that the area down under the bleachers might be able to be readily modified for girls' use, or again, the big focus is gender neutrality and, you know, kind of building for the future. We can't make more square footage out of the footprint we have. We have to be creative, but I think we all feel the same way that if there's opportunities for a future infrastructure grant, that it would include perhaps adding 2 or 4 more change rooms. That might be the time we could consolidate the ice melt pit and maybe some additional space. So I know Mr. Drobich is, he's got his ear to the ground. He can find money fairly well. So let's just hope that we can tackle that. But I think anything we can do to get firstly staff out of, you know, literally storage rooms and maybe repurpose those for our arena users, I think that would be a great help. But again, to answer your question, it's not specifically part of this grant.
Well, this is good. I think we've pretty well discussed everything we need to discuss unless there's anything further. And Ed, I agree with you. This is much more exciting than a field full of mud. It's beautiful. And I think everyone here in the whole community will agree it's something we're very much looking forward to when it's finished, although it'll be modified, I'm sure. We're going to call on Councillor Luciani to read the resolution. Yeah, better shut off.
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Rosehart that the council for the town of Tilsenburg receives a presentation by Ed Vandermel from A Plus Link Architecture regarding the new public standard, PSAB standard PS-3280 and the Tilsenburg Community Center, and further direct staff to proceed to the final design and tendering process.
Thank you, Councillor Luciani. Are there any further questions or comments on that? And the mayor has his hand up. Mayor, please.
You're on mute, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Parker. Through the chair. I guess resolution on the floor, so I'll direct my questions to the director, and first of all to Mr. Baird, to Mr. Drobich, his entire team at RCP or Recreation, Culture and Parks. Thank you for your leadership in this initiative. There are realities, there's funding realities, there's a new way of, material acquisitions and, just building a deck in your backyard can be a struggle, or Mr. Penner, I think, was referencing getting trees planted, but, had there been direction somewhere to mitigate the scope of the project relative to costs, or versus looking for alternative sources to accommodate the original scope of the project?
Through the deputy mayor, Mr. Mayor, this costing exercise that we've just gone through has really focused and sort of crystallized what we need to do. We don't want to just do this little tiny addition. We want to maximize the grant. We don't want to send any money back in that example. The next step, now that we are getting closer to a final design or a concept, this is where the pencils get sharpened. And council has already directed staff to reach out to the broader community, local business leaders, we can now share, a firmer vision of the project. We know there's a lot of people, a lot of businesses in the community that are willing to step forward, maybe help fill in the gaps when those bids close. Maybe naming rights for buildings. The Aquatic Center would be quite a prime facility to have a name on, and it should carry a significant price tag. So these are the areas that Dave and I are going to be exploring over the next couple of months. But until we get to this stage, I think we owe it to contributors or donors to see that here's a plan. This is where we're at right now. This is a public process, and this council is moving it forward. So that's really the next step. So we'll continue to work on that while Ed and his team finalize the specifications and tender.
I'm fully supportive of the project, fully supportive of the resolution. Have there been outside modifications and potential cutbacks to satisfy additional costs that the real world, you'd be experiencing? I looked at the presentation from a few months ago, and I look at the presentation tonight, and outside of, I think the quote was moderately reducing the size of the entryway, the potential elimination of the ice melting area. Is it not very similar to the original presentation that council received a few months ago?
Through the deputy mayor, perhaps I'll take the first part of your question, Mr. Mayor, and then
I'm just asking you. You're the only one here unless Mr. Drobich is here. So
yeah,
sorry about that.
We're recommending, I think collectively as a team, that the ice melt pit be included as a provisional item. So no guarantee that that would be built. That's a potential cost saving. To the stage we've gotten so far, the figures have been fairly broad. We now have, there's more and more projects being bid post-COVID that were, maybe we've been a bit rich in some of the estimates, that we can tighten those up to find some savings. We're looking at some potential phasing in the future. But as far as scaling back some of the larger components, I'd defer to Mr. Vandermel to perhaps speak to those.
Now, there was a presentation made, council received it and said, come back with some, other information, more information. If I reflect on the resolution, I'm looking at the customer services in the same, the ramping is the same, the accessibility as a priority appears to be the same. Am I missing something that is different now other than the potential elimination, deferral, or strategizing over any, RFP aspect of this that is demonstrably different than what it was months ago when we first were presented with this material?
I can answer that. If that's all right.
Up to the chair then.
The design is in essence the same from an exterior aesthetic, except for area. So I think we've accommodated the same visual and the same appearance, except there's a reduction in area on the two levels of that new part, which is where the bulk of the cost is. So I should add, just to complement what Chris was saying, we have one more costing. Because of the volatility in the market, we're feeling right now that we have to have multiple costing sessions. And so once we get into the construction documents, there is another costing to be completed, because we want to assure ourselves when we get to the tender stage, we're not going backwards at that point.
That's all I was looking for, is a confirmation of what I believe to have been the case. Because it seems like we're potentially moving backwards on egress and access and entry levels and things. There's a reality, and we'll still have time to, review and mend or create some positive dialogue on, whether it's color tones and operational aspects, because the more glass and mirror you have, ultimately, the more operational costs you introduce down the road, regardless. So no, I'm satisfied. I'm encouraged by the comments of Director Baird, as always, relative to the parceling potentially of some of the materials, so that we don't lose sight of that. And if it's genuine, use the ice melt as an example. Well, okay, there's a realism that it may not be achievable now, but by getting a fair market price on as a part or an addition to an RFP, I would consider that wise. It's been mentioned a couple of times, and I hope that's done. I think what we're looking at overall is a rejuvenation, enhanced accessibility, an inclusive aspect to what has been a gem of this community, which continues to attract families here at all ages. And I think that's the sustainable aspect of the project. So very, very appreciative of the work of A+ Link, and most importantly,
I think we lost him. He's pretty well completed anyway. He was just summing things up. And I think we all agree what a good job you've done and made the presentation for us tonight. Much appreciated. So, Councillor Parker.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Director Baird. The one thing that I do have a concern with removing the ice melt pit from the project is we were told when we replaced the Zamboni that the cause of needing to replace the Zamboni at half of its life was because of the ramp that it has to drive up and down. So I guess the question is, if we remove the ice melt pit in 3 years from now, are we going to have to replace the Zamboni again, which is going to come at a 500,000 or even more at that point, a cost. So finding the balance of the cost of the ice melt pit versus replacing a new Zamboni at half the life is something that we really need to investigate. Because I don't want to sit here again in 3-4 years and say we need new Zamboni because we keep driving up an incline that's more than 3%.
Through Deputy Mayor, thanks, Councilor Parker. We definitely don't want to buy a new Zamboni again in a couple of years. I did mention that using the term provisional within a tender document lets us include that in, but it does tell bidders that we're not sure if we're going to include that component or not. So I think we can take that back to the team and look at doing that. I think it would be helpful on two fronts, that if we can get it within the budget, great, let's do it. But if it is significantly more expensive, at least we have an estimate and we go out to other funding opportunities. We know we're going to pitch the right amount. There's nothing worse than going through a whole application only to get a half of what you need. You really set yourself up for failure. So point well taken. We'll bring that back to the team and make sure we include that.
Thank you.
I think the only comment that I want to make is back a few years ago when the last major construction job was done at the community center in 2004, I believe it was, and we did the It's for Everyone campaign at that time. And corporates stepped up and said, please let me put my name on this building. And a lot of money when that challenge was done. And of course, that's up to our staff here at budget time to come up with those sort of things. It's not for right now, but I'm sure, as Mayor Molnar alluded to, are there any other sources of funding? And there are people out there that are really anxious to get their name on pools and Zambonis and that sort of thing, whatever they can afford. And it's money well spent. I don't know how many people I know a few years ago, they said there was close to 7 million times a year the doors were open and shut on there, albeit many were the same person. But that building is well used in the good years. And even during, post-COVID now, it's all coming back. So to do advertising in there, to see that many people recognize the logos it's certainly quite valuable to do that. So those are my comments. Anything further from members of council before I call the question? We've heard the resolution. All in favor? Thank you very much. And thank you again, Ed, for your time. You're welcome to sit through the rest of the meeting and watch us, but I think you probably have better things to do. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Baird, for your work. On to the deputations, the COVID-19. There's nothing to report. Information items, the Oxford County regarding the transportation master plan and the corridor study. Is there anyone that would like to speak to that or any questions on that? Or just read what we have for now? Carlos, is there anything you want to bring up on that?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. No, I just wanted to confirm that a group from the town of Tilsonburg will be participating as part of the team that will be working with the county in updating this master plan. Also, the county has confirmed that there will be a consultation in town, potentially September or October. There will be completing an open house consultation. Just anyone to have comments to that plan can bring that to the county's attention.
And this would be for those who perhaps would like to see truck traffic removed from the main street, and that would be an opportunity for them to get their message on there.
That is correct. That open consultation is for anyone who has comments. That is correct. So the consultation will be for anyone in the public that has any comments for a transportation master plan.
And I'm sure that will be well advertised prior to that happening, so the public.
That is correct.
Thank you. The next item, the Administrator of the Solicitor General, the conclusion of COVID-19 enforcement. Councilor Rosehart, resolution. I'm sorry, we should discuss that. Is there anything that from that we would like clarification on? Seeing none, Councilor Rosehart, resolution, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Parker, that the information item from Oxford County dated April 29, 2022, and from the Ministry of the Solicitor General dated May 13, 2022, be received as information. Thank you.
Thank you. You've heard the resolution. All in favor? And that is, of course, carried. Thank you very much. Staff reports. Anything from the Chief Administrative Officer? No. Corporate Services, THI, staff report. Councilor Parker, please.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Gilvazy. The council received the report on a memorandum of understanding and direction between the corporation of the town of Tilsenburg and Tilsenburg Hydro Inc. for information, and that the memorandum of understanding and direction between the corporation of the town of Tilsenburg, the shareholder, and Tilsenburg Hydro Inc. be referred to the annual general meeting for consideration by the shareholder.
Thank you, Councilor Parker. And that meeting, I believe, is June. Someone have that? Check my calendar. Yeah, it's usually towards the end of the month. Just let me find it on my calendar.
June 28th.
June 28th at noon and here, right, in council chambers. That's something, yeah. Here in council chambers.
Correct.
Right, correct. Okay, Councilor Esseltine.
I'm thinking the notice said it was a virtual meeting, but I wondered if we could ask for an in-person meeting.
We can certainly reach out and ask. I know that they have been meeting virtually, so, but I can I can indicate that council's made that ask.
Now, the other thing I was wondering if we would be able to get is like a list of the board members of THI and their roles, like in the information they sent us. It talks about the chair, vice chair, president, treasurer, secretary, officers, members of and things like that. I wondered if we could get a document that tells us who's who in terms of THI. The council used to have a stronger role in that, which we don't really have anymore, but it would be nice to be able to identify who the people are, how long they've been there. I noticed in the documentation that they're looking for people to last at least or to be there 9 years sort of minimum. So that information would be interesting, I think, as shareholders of THI. Yeah.
I believe that prior to the meeting, we're usually given an agenda. And quite often those items of information that you've asked for will be on that agenda as to what their intent is. And I could be incorrect, but we certainly request that if you have an opportunity to speak to them. We usually get that information.
We can absolutely make that request, so that's available for everyone.
Councilor Gavesi.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have some questions and concerns. So in the document, it said that there's going to be an evaluating process over individual performance of board members. I'm curious to know who would be the evaluator.
Well, I'm not sure whether we're in a position tonight to look at this, and that's why the memorandum of understanding is referred to the annual general meeting, and those were the questions that I believe we'll bring up at that time. We could, of course, prepare those questions and have them sent forward if that's what you'd like to have happen. Is that your intent, Councillor?
Sure, I guess then I'm seeking clarification on the process, because I'm saying that I don't necessarily agree with sending this memorandum of understanding forward to the annual general meeting. But I guess will we have opportunity at that time to ask questions?
I would think so. I'll just confirm with the clerk or the CAO.
Yeah, through the chair. So, my understanding is through the MOUD and the THI bylaw is they're looking for council to support them in this direction. So if council doesn't support them or has questions, it's important that we clarify that, because I think at the AGM, they're hoping that you'd pass that at the AGM. So if that's not the intent, we should start looking and finding answers to those questions now.
So would you like to continue with that, Councillor Gilvacy?
Okay, so yes, so I don't support it the way it's written. I do have a number of concerns. So the one would be okay, what is the best, or yes, what is the standard practice for the number of years that directors are appointed? Because it's 9 in there, but I'm wondering if that's a standard normal. The other thing was the way that I read it, it was like there was no limit on the number of directors. It just had a minimum, and then no, it said that it was 9 years. But the way, and it said a minimum of 7 members, but there was no maximum. That would be another concern that I had. I also feel like there should be another shareholder member, because I feel there's a lack of communication between THI and the shareholder. So who's evaluating the individual performance was another question I had. And why is the shareholder now becoming an affiliate related director? So I don't understand what the reasoning for this might be. I think I have everything now. Oh, also, well, there's no cap on the per diem either. So it's solely up to the directors, I guess, that they have the right to vote and put in their own per diem. And I was curious to know who was actually on the MOUD committee. Thank you.
Good questions. CEO Pratt, do you have any comments on her questions or any answers maybe?
Through the chair, the MOUD committee, did we get that in the staff report, Michelle? No? Okay. So I don't know off the top of my head, but I believe it's Vice Chair Ann Loker, Member Alex, and then another individual. There was 3 of them. And then of course, the secretary to those meetings would be Amelia Jagard, but we can get those exact answers for you. And then as far as the other items, yeah, that's what they're proposing. I wasn't asked to provide comments, so I haven't done that yet. So those are questions that we don't know the answers to. You're right. Those are just what they're proposing.
What we can suggest though, in order to be prepared for the AGM, it might be best if we take away some of these questions. We can provide a report back to council before the AGM, if that's helpful.
It's very helpful. Councilor Time.
I just wanted to mention as well that in their documentation, they said that they do 2 reports annually in addition to the shareholders meeting. And I don't believe that we've gotten any reports in a substantial length of time. So maybe perhaps Michelle could question that for us as well.
It was pre-COVID, the last time that we've had a virtual report for questions and answers from the committee. Yeah. Councillor Parker.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. The one other thing that stood out to me in the MOUD, there's no opportunity for this shareholder to remove a board member or replace a board member. I think that's very concerning, that to me at least, that everything is all kept in-house inside this board of directors and the shareholder really has no say. So I can say myself right now, I'm not comfortable passing this resolution. I do think that it needs to be deferred until a staff report can come back with answers to the questions that we've posed today. So I would like to put a motion to defer on until we can get a staff report, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Gilvazy.
We have a motion to defer from Parker Gilvacy. The purpose, of course, is to get some of these questions brought back. So we'll deal with the motion to defer. Or should we deal with the original motion and defeat it? No. Your help here for process.
I would suggest that you're dealing with the motion to defer.
To defer. Okay, we do have a motion. Defer, moved and seconded by Councillor Parker, seconded by Councillor Gilvacy. And we'll call that question. A motion to defer? And that's carried unanimously. So what that does, we'll take the original resolution off the table because we're deferring. Okay, very good. Thank you, Councillor Parker. And that gives the staff our opportunity to pose those questions as listed. And would you entertain anything else if someone thought of something and sent it to you within the next day or so?
Stay or so. Yes, that's key. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, we'd want to do that before their board meeting. So thank you. Next item on the agenda is economic development, the Horticultural Society request for Indigenous recognition signage. Cephas, I believe we saw that presentation. Should I be asking you for this? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and members of council. At the last meeting, there was a delegation from Dave Morris from the Tilsonburg Historical Society regarding the celebration of Indigenous Day, and also that staff be directed to prepare a report on their request, which was to name the entranceway to the soccer club at the Wandering Way in recognition of the Indigenous representation, not only in our community, but specifically on that site. There was a lot of historical and I guess archaeological information that's been found on that area of the town. And so what we have done here is looked into a few things. We have confirmed, of course, first with our operations and development department that it is actually not a municipal right of way. So it's not a road, so we can't name it under the road bylaw. But there are some key parts of that bylaw that do support what we're doing here, what we're proposing, and certainly does the road naming policy does look at recognizing historical and cultural places and events of significance. And further to that, we've done a bit of a concept mock-up. There are 2 signs on site already, so we're actually recommending that we just add more of a wayfinding sign. And that's because the Historical Society has actually requested one of those heritage plaques that you see around Ontario that really will add more information. So we don't need to have a big recognition, but maybe just something that points to that plaque that will be hopefully instated in the future. So this has been discussed with Mr. Morris since the council meeting. If council does give us direction to move forward with that wayfinding signage placement on Quarter Town Line to point toward that, we continue to work with the Historical Society, of course, the Tilsenberg Minor Soccer Club to make sure that something suitable is installed or prepared to be installed, and we would report back to council as well on that. And again, this appears to be a no cost to the town as they have funds for this. We certainly spent a little bit of time investigating this, preparing the conceptual design, but no real cost other than our time so far. Thank you.
My question to you is, would the Tonawanda Way would be a blade on a sign such as a street sign, or would it be more of a wayfinder sign, which would be quite large? I'm sorry.
Thank you for the question. That's a great question, Deputy Mayor. And certainly we see it as being a larger sign than just a street blade sign. We would see it being, somewhere around this size, shall we say. So again, with large fonts so that it'll be easily recognizable and easily findable.
That would be right on the road on the entrance by the sign, or would it be within the soccer park gate?
At this point, the report, we're saying it could be on a hydro pole. There is a hydro pole in proximity, but certainly we have to investigate a little bit more. We had limited time to prepare the report, and it could be on a separate pole as well. But at this point, we're trying to do it as a cost-effective and as a manner as we can.
My point is, it would be visible to the drivers on Quarter Line as they drive by. Okay, good. Questions? Councillor, I'm sorry, I should be asking questions. Councillor Asseltine.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, through you to Cephas. So Cephas, in your report, you mentioned 2 alternatives, really. One is just the sign on the hydro pole, and the other is a pylon sign. Now, the pylon sign shows that not only does it say Attawandering Way, it also says Historic Indigenous Site. And given that the Historical Society, they've had a request for a historical sign for a decade, I bet. It seems like forever that they've requested that sign and it has not come through yet. So it's provincial government, I don't know, but I just wondered, so you said if for the larger sign, that would include historic indigenous site and then the Attawandaron Road, that it would require an exemption from council. And I wondered what kind of exemption would that be? Is that just a motion from council to move forward with a pylon sign instead of the sign on the hydro pole?
The deputy mayor to Councillor Esseltine. Yeah, so with respect to that, the town sign bylaw does limit the number of what they call ground or pylon, as you noted, to one per lot. There's already two on the property already. So I think that it could come to council, of course, as an exemption. I haven't reviewed that particular question with operations and development. I don't know if you're prepared to speak to that at all, but I think that it could be exempted, but it is a challenge when there's two signs on the property, so.
Are the two signs that are there both related to the soccer park?
That's correct. They have an LED animated sign and then a larger sign that says Tilsenburg Minor Soccer that might have been there historically. I'm not sure which came first, but they're two fairly substantial signs.
Do you think that there would be a way to add historic indigenous site and then Attawandaron Way to a hydropole sign or a plate? I'm sorry, you have a better way of saying hydropole sign. Sorry about that.
We certainly, through the deputy mayor again, we certainly could look into it. Again, this is not meant to be a final report on this. We could take that direction and see if we could fit it on a sign as well and make sure that it's the right size font. And obviously that would be part of our report back to council.
And then just lastly, then, do we have in mind the date that Mr. Morris wanted this in place for the a ceremony, I believe? Do you remember the?
Yeah, I believe it's in the report. Sorry, someone just said it. June 12th or 20th?
It's the 20th.
Yeah.
So it's important that we have it for that date.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, and it is important, as you noted, sorry, my mic was on, but it is important, I'll just repeat it, for it to be in place by June 21st. We're about a month away from that. Certainly, we would work toward achieving that.
That was a good report. Thank you.
Better get the printing press working. Okay, anything further on this? Seeing not, let's call the question. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. All right. All right, Councillor Gilvacy, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Esseltine, that council approve the Tilsonburg Historical Society's request for the addition of signage identifying the access to the Tilsonburg Minor Soccer Club as Attawandaron Way, and that the wayfinding signage be located either on the 275 Quartertown Line property owned by the town or within the adjacent Quartertown Line right of way, and that an information report be brought back to council confirming the details of the installation once finalized in conjunction with the Tilsonburg Historical Society and the Tilsonburg Minor Soccer Club.
Okay, we've heard the resolution. Let's vote on it. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, council. Okay, Finance Department, the 14.4.1, the 22-10-2022 final budget and tax rate bylaw report. Councillor Esseltine.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Luciani, that a bylaw to provide for the adoption of budgetary estimates, tax rates, installation due dates, and to.
I'm sorry, start over. I had the.
Okay. So, okay. Okay. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Luciani, that a bylaw to provide for the adoption of budgetary estimates, tax rates, installment due dates, and to further provide for penalty and interest on default of payment thereof for 2022 be brought forward for council consideration.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Fire and Emergency Services, nothing. Operations and Development, Asset Management Plan for Core Assets. Councillor Luciani.
Yeah, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Rosehart. The council adopts the 2022 asset management plan for core assets.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Councillor Galvezi?
Thank you. Firstly, I see Mr. Reetzman in the back there. I wanted to say that this was a very comprehensive report, well written, a lengthy read. I do have one concern, and my concern would be with regards to the flexibility of the plan. So, like once everything's identified and, you know, basically numbered criticals or, you know, good to fair, etc. If something is identified that needs repairing, number one, are we going to see that in the budget that's like a must do next year? And the other thing is, if something else were to come along that became more critical, is there flexibility in this asset plan to be, I guess, changed on the fly?
Through the chair to Councillor Galvezi, are you talking about emergency repairs specifically?
Well, no, not overall. Like what I'm just referring to is that, like, you know, this is rating, it's rating everything from bridges to roads. And I think this year might be an example where council felt that there was one area of a road, and I know council last time probably asked multiple times about it. It didn't get in this year's budget, but it's going to be in next. But so when the roads are rated and, you know, we see, okay, this road's in critical repair for paving, but council may feel that there's another road that needs to be done. So I want to know, is there flexibility, you know, in this plan that this isn't going to completely like drive the budget 100%, you know, by saying, okay, this road has been identified as us, it must need to be done this year, but council may feel that a different road needs to be done.
Through the chair to Councillor Galvezi, this plan helps me provide you with the list of projects during budget deliberations. So I'd be able to provide you with the projects with the negative ratings.
But is it flexible?
Yes.
I think it's always flexible. It's council's final decision on those things, but it is a guideline for budget purposes for the asset management program. Much needed. Thank you. Any other questions for Shane? No. Well, Councillor Esseltine.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm just curious, so this asset management plan had to do with roads and bridges and lots of things like that. But you see in the documentation that you sent to us that there will be asset management plans for buildings and structures and things like that, as well as other things that I think too. Now, will this continue to be your responsibility, or is it your responsibility because of the roads and bridges and things?
Through the chair to Councillor Esseltine, I'd have to defer that original question to Councillor Director Reyes. However, yes, the roads, bridges, and storms and culverts is within my area, so that's why I'm proposing this asset management plan update.
But it won't necessarily be you then that continues on with the asset management plans for other types of things. Thank you.
Thank you, through the Deputy Mayor. It is a team effort. So right now we're working with different departments, especially with RCP. There is an RFP that was awarded. We have a consultant that is doing a condition assessment of all the facilities. Just to answer your question, it is a team effort. We are working with the finance department and different managers or different divisions, just making sure that data is collected and is also analyzed in the software that we are using. So in 2 years, there's going to be a new requirement from the town to report back to the province with a new report, including facilities, parks, IT assets, etc. We're going to be working together with different departments, just making sure that that report is ready before the deadline.
2 years is the time for the next asset management report that will include the things you referenced. It must be a huge time commitment, eh? Like, yeah.
Yes, that is correct. I think it's July 1st, 2024. That's the deadline for the report. That includes all the other assets, so facilities, IT, everything else.
You don't have an asset management plan. When the grants come along, then the province is not very helpful. They like to see us prepared. Councillor Parker.
through you, Deputy Mayor, to Director Reyes. That is legislated by the province that the asset management plan has to be completed, and it has to be completed or sent to them on a regular basis for to make sure that the municipality is correctly using the monies that we've collected to make sure that our assets are in upstanding condition.
Through the Deputy Mayor, that is correct. It is a requirement from the province. However, I think there is a value for all municipalities to have an asset management plan, just to make sure that we know the assets that we own, the conditions they are, and especially the funding required for those assets. I just wanted to add, lately the government is also making this mandatory for grants, so for approval of grants. So the municipality needs to have an asset management plan adopted by council before that we are considered for any grant applications. So I think it's very important, and I just want to thanks again to the engineering department for working in this report.
Anything further from members of council? I just want to make a comment, Mr. Reyes, for your team, and your team being Shane and Richard and Chris from Parks and Recreation and Parks, for the transparency that you people have with council, keeping us abreast of what's going on. We get requests all the time. Why is this road closed? Why is this happening? And we know ahead of time, and you're very, very good at sending those notices out to us. And of course, you're all there in case someone has a question about certain areas and projects or what. The transparency is good, and we really appreciate that from council's point of view. Thank you. Congratulations. We have a resolution. Councillor Luciani, did you read it? Okay. Whether we're doing it before or after, we'll call the question. All in favor of that? Thank you very much. That is carried. Thank you, Shane. Oxford County Joint Transportation Service Delivery. Councillor Rosehart.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Parker, that the report OPD 22-18 Oxford County Joint Transportation Service Delivery Review, staff comments be received as information and sent to Oxford County Council. Thank you.
Mr. Reyes, would you like to make a comment on that? Is there anything, or do we have questions from council on it? Are we all understanding? Councillor Galvezi?
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have one comment. Firstly, I agree with the report, and especially the area regarding the lack of defining level of service. It's unknown. The one thing that maybe I felt could receive a little more attention is we're constantly talking about climate change and carbon footprint, and the amount of distance that the trucks would have to travel if they're centralized into 3 areas will significantly impact an increase in carbon footprint. So I just wanted to make that point, but otherwise it's well written.
Anything further from members of council? Any comments, Mr. Reyes, that you'd like to make?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. No, I just want also to give kudos to our team, the Manager of Public Works, just for helping me preparing this report. So last year we negotiated with the county to include North Street. That was the only road that the town was now providing road maintenance on behalf of the county. So at this point, we provide maintenance for all the county roads within our boundary lines. So again, I want to thank you, Public Works Department, just for doing an amazing work, just maintaining those roads. So far, we have received no complaints from the county or from residents. So they're doing a really good job maintaining our roads.
I believe we should hold on to those services as long as we possibly can with the county. Our local people know where the flower beds are and whatnot, and they do their best to try to leave the sprinkler heads on the front lawn. So that's well done. Thank you very much. So that would be Councillor Rosehart. You read that? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Recreations, Culture and Parks, nothing. New business. Committee meeting minutes, Councillor Parker.
Moved by myself, seconded by Counselor Gilvazy, that the following council committee minutes be received as information. May 3rd, 2022, Tilsenburg 150 Ad Hoc Committee minutes. May 4th, 2022, Culture, Heritage, and Special Awards Committee minutes. May 10th, Dog Park Advisory Committee minutes. May 11th, Recreation and Sports Advisory Committee minutes, May 10th, Economic Development Advisory Committee minutes, April 27th, Affordable and Attainable Housing Advisory Committee minutes, May 17th, Boundary Adjustment Committee minutes.
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Conservation Authority minutes, Councillor Gilvazy.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Esseltine that the minutes of the April 6, 2022 Long Point Conservation Authority meeting be received as information.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. The notice of motion that I had, I'm going to ask that that be delayed till the next meeting. That was in the adoption of the agenda. So item number 18, resolutions from resulting closed sessions. Was there anything there? There was none there? No. Bylaws, Councillor Esseltine.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Luciani, that a bylaw to provide for the adoption of budgetary estimates, tax rates, installment due dates, and to further provide for penalty and interest on default of payment thereof for 2022. And a bylaw to amend bylaw number 3798, being a bylaw to prohibit or regulate signs and other advertising devices, and the posting of notices be read for a first, second, third, and final reading, and that the mayor and the clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign the same and place the corporate seal thereunto. And further, that a bylaw to provide for the drainage works in the town of Tilsonburg in the counties of Oxford and Norfolk, being the J.A. Smith Drain, Armtech realignment, be read for a first and second time and provisionally adopted, and that the mayor and the clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign the same and place the corporate seal thereunto.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Esseltine, for that. Anything further on that? And seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? The bylaws, thank you, and that is carried, of course. Confirmation bylaw, Councillor Luciani.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Rosehart that bylaw 2022-038 to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on May 24th, 2022 be read for a first, second, third, and final reading, and that the mayor and the clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign the same and place the corporate seal thereunto.
Thank you for that. So we'll call that question. All in favor? And that, of course, is carried. Items of public interest. Is there anything that needs to be brought up tonight? And seeing none, the next meeting will be June 16th, the regular council meeting at 6 p.m. What day of the week is that?
Thursday.
That's a Thursday. And that's because of a conference coming up for staff, the Association of Municipal Clerks and Treasurers, and our staff won't be here for the regular date. So that's postponed to Thursday, June 16th. Thank you very much. Now, it gives me great pleasure to make a comment tonight and hand an award to Mr. Chris Baird. Chris Baird has been at 2 council meetings in person. Just were you not here for the last one? Just the first and last council meeting, but you were certainly here for the other ones through the virtual ones. And when you came, you were thrown right into the fire of COVID. And your name was mud with a lot of people because unknown, the rules and regulations from the province of Ontario and Southwestern Public Health were to keep people safe. And we kept people safe with your help and your staff help. There were times that the parks were completely closed. All the playground equipment was off limits and people would get in big trouble if they set foot in a park for short times. And that was through the total isolation of the early stages of the COVID pandemic. And we thank you for doing that. We also thank you for the projects that you've done for us. I mentioned earlier about the transparency of some staff members and directors with council. You've kept us informed as to what was going on here yeah, and hearing behind your back from staff members how good you were to work with from the people that worked in your departments. And the pyramid or the chain that you created is highly respected, and the people of the community feel very strongly about the same way. And we have a very, very valuable plaque that was printed at our office, and I believe the dollar store provided this, but the taxpayer is very frugal. And I'd like to present you with a certificate of recognition from the town of Tilsonburg to Chris Baird in his retirement, in recognition of your contributions as Director of Recreation, Culture and Parks, given this 26th day, 25th, isn't it? 24th day of May. I think you're gonna have to wait a couple of days for this. And it's signed by Mayor Molnar, but we all appreciate this. And please take that and hang it in your office. And thank you very much for your service. Thank you very much. And unaccustomed as you are to public speaking, we'll ask you if you'd like to make a comment.
32 plus years in municipal government. Yeah. I just wanted to say thank you so much. It's been a true privilege to have been given the opportunity to come to Tilsenberg initially for about 4 or 5 weeks to get things on track. That, of course, is extended up until this Friday. Thank you, Mr. Pratt, Kyle. We've become good friends and colleagues, and I know that will continue. Ironically, I said this is the first and last council meeting that I'm here. This is kind of neat to be up with you guys. Again, that is a privilege. I applied a few times to come to Tilsenburg years ago, and that never panned out. So I had to wait, I guess, to get a little more experience. And I'll never forget the almost 2 years that I've had to serve you in your term of council. I wish I came here earlier because I've learned a lot more about this great town, and I've met some incredible people. This town is truly blessed, not only with great leadership, but businesses. Cephas, you and I have known each other for a long time, probably over 20 years. I'm an economic development professional, as is Cephas, and Kyle. There's amazing things happening in this town. You should be very proud of it. And I'm, again, privileged to have been a little part of that. And I will remember this for the rest of my career. So thank you very much.
Yep. There's two things that are our loss. One is losing you, and the other is that name tag, nameplate in front of you. You reach over and slide it out. You can keep that for a souvenir. All right, that sound good? Very well, thank you. Adjournment, Councilor Rosehart. I'm sorry, of course we can. Roundtable, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I would really like to thank all the girls and ladies that are out there right now doing our flower beds. They're doing an amazing job. The one around the museum looks awesome. They've done so much work there. Got to be appreciative of the ladies that work out there. I would like to ask Mr. Pratt, the mayor was on TV. I didn't see it. I'm only hearing rumors from the street that he was at the clock tower doing a radio, TV show for the weather station in Toronto about Smiles for Kids. And I was just wondering why council was never given an update or invited, or why did it happen? We're not informed.
Through the deputy mayor, I'm not sure why the communication didn't get to you. The mayor's not here to answer that, but we'll have to talk to the mayor about that. And I hope he did a good job.
We can reserve that question when the mayor returns directly to him. I don't know if the rest were informed or not. I certainly wasn't, so wasn't aware of it. Anything else?
Nope. Very disappointed though that we were not part of the situation, I guess, or informed. Thank you. I will now read Mr. Mayor. Oh, sorry, unless someone.
We're just going to ask if other people would like to make comments. Councilor Galvezi.
Your microphone's on. Just piggyback on the ladies that are doing the flower beds. I saw them in the parquet on Broadway and Oxford today. Doing a tremendous job. There's a lot of weeds out there. And so, yeah, it looks really great. Thank you.
Hockey night in Canada, Councillor Parker.
Well, the hockey season's concluded for the most part. Did have one question for Director Reyes, which I bring up pretty much every meeting. How much longer till Concession Street is completed? It is like, I'm glad that it's open, but it's like a slalom course out there right now.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, to you. My understanding is that the project will be completed this week. However, we'll defer to the manager of engineering who's here today. He will have a live update.
Shane, things keep changing, so please enlighten us.
To the chair, to Councillor Parker. So paving is scheduled the last week of May. So once it's paved, we're finally done next week.
Thank you.
Councillor Esseltine.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would just comment to the comments about the Horticultural Society in the gardens. We were in the parkette down at Oxford and Broadway this morning, but not pulling weeds. We were planting the flowers that the council funded for us in an extended amount of money they gave the society for their work this year to do that parkette specifically for Tilsenburg 150. So, and just along the same line, then the Horticultural Society has their annual plant sale and auction, which is a lot of fun, on Tuesday, May 31st. Doors open at 5 o'clock. Live auction starts at 6. So anybody who's interested, come along. It's lots of fun. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Luciani.
Nothing in particular for an update, but I do just want to also offer my congratulations to Director Baird, and it's been a pleasure working with you.
The only comment I have to make, I have to wear my other hat from the Tilsonburg Lions Club. There's a bottle drive coming up. There's 2 a year. It's the Saturday after New Year's Eve, which is usually, some people might have some bottles around. And the other one is after the long weekend on Victoria Day, which is this coming Saturday. So there's a bottle drive in behind Avondale Church. In the parking lot there from 10 o'clock till 2. And the local Lions Club raise usually in the neighborhood of $1,600 to $1,800 at this bottle drive. So please come out and say hello and drop off whatever you can and that you don't want kicking around in your garage collecting fruit flies. All right, we thank you for that. With that, Councillor Rosehart, we will ask you for a motion for adjournment.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Parker, that the council meeting of May 24th, 2022 be adjourned at 8:36 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a very pleasant good evening, and we'll see you all in, I guess, on June 16th, the next time we, I'm sorry. I guess I better call the vote. All in favor? Yeah, carried. We'll see you all on the 16th of June. Thank you very much. Good night.